This is Jerome Godboo, mostly known as a harmonica player, but secretly doing all sorts of mysterious things on his own. Speaking on Talking Blues with Mako Funasaka. Did I say it right?
Yes. You did a gig last night. How was the gig?
It was interesting, but it felt like the known. I mean, these guys are some of the best blues players around. Like Sean Kellerman, I started hiring, and a lot of people criticized my choice. They're like, "Oh, he's too loud and he's stealing the show from you, Jerome." And these are fans of mine, and I'm like, well, first of all, I'm still singing everything and playing all the harp I used to. If he's getting standing ovations, that's good for me because it's my band. I don't care who gets them. So I would just argue with my fans, like, if he's stealing the show, that's good. And then I got my kind of gleeful, acknowledgement when Lucky Peterson, who's like, he's up there. He was one of the big legends. He just passed away. God bless him. And he was up there with like B.B. King and those guys. He was like playing major festivals all around the world. He hired Sean Kellerman. So that was my ha-ha moment because I was like, everyone who criticized me for hiring him I was just like, ha, 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 ha. Like Lucky Peterson just hired him. So obviously I got good taste, right? Like Lucky Peterson was a childhood genius on organ and a damn good guitar player. So, okay, he hired Sean. So I'm not that far off, am I? And personally, it's good to remember that in the blues, we all wanted success, right? So if one of your guys gets it, you don't, like me as a band boss, I don't punish a guy for succeeding. I say, you're doing what I want to do. Go do it, and you will suffer no penalty. As soon as you come back, I'll hire you. It's not like a boyfriend and girlfriend. You fooled around on me. It's done, right? Like musicians, we're supposed to fool around with other people. You're supposed to.
But not everybody feels that way, right? Because they have their own ego.
But they're immature, right? So anyway, I got to play with Sean last night, but it's like, I hope if he hears this, he understands it. The date's over. It's like I captured his amazing guitar playing on I think 3 of my CDs. And it just felt like fun, but we know each other so well. It felt like a bit of a routine. I know all the moves. There was no discovery and invention left for me
last night.
Last night, yeah. Eric Shankman, great guitar player. Really warm guy. Like he gave me a pair of shoes. I gave him a leather jacket. We're all giving each other stuff. We're really good friends. But again, we've cut a couple of CDs, and it's just, you get to this point where you got to form your own band, man. Like Frank Zappa used to do that with musicians he loved. He'd kick them out of his band, and then they'd go on and make their own famous band, right? He'd just say, bye, our creative time is done.
Right.
And so that's what I felt, what I took away from last night at Grossman's.
I wonder what was the last gig you did? Because I don't know how much you're playing these days.
Not much. No, I'm just deciding how the universe wants to use me, really. It could be anything.
So when was the last gig you did?
Well, last night, and then before that, it was about a month before at a local place, the Crystal Chandelier.
Okay.
Lately, I favor gigs that require less driving. Because, every time you go out there, you're risking your life, and there's a lot of bad drivers. And airports are even worse. I've realized, these days, they don't really treat you like humans. They treat you like cows that they can milk for money, So I've seen so many of my friends get canceled flights and stuff, and you just have to, they try and make it up to you. Some of them are nice, but I've basically sworn off airports for a while. Unless you pay me like $5,000, then I'll fly somewhere. You got to pay me a lot of money, and nobody will. So I'm just fine without flying anywhere. And so I've developed a couple of gigs locally because it's 5 minutes from my house. So it's just, the fun part's always playing, right? Getting there, that's why you got to get paid. because you got to travel there. So if I can take the travel out, then the gig's worth more.
Okay, but this also comes at a time when you stop playing for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know where you are. Sorry, where are you at the level of playing? Are you where you used to be?
No.
So with all that, is it weird to go play with Sean and Eric and feel like you've done this before? Like it doesn't feel like something new?
It didn't feel like something new. I could see last night their dedication to the art of blues, and I feel a certain mastery with the blues, and I need to just go into funk and I need to go into whatever I want to write. Like Frank Zappa, you don't care about commercialism anymore. I really don't. Whatever lyric you write is the song. It could be about anything, right? And whatever music you write. Like the other day I had a lot of fun. I just started it on tambourine because a guy from a band, I went to see a band. I couldn't believe it. He gave me a tambourine because I always call the tambourine the most dangerous instrument in the band because they're loud. You don't hand them out. It's a bad idea. So this guy hands it out. Luckily, he picked me because I was being very respectful on it. Anyway, later after the show, the guy gives me a tambourine. So I take it home, and then I realize all these, New Orleans bands, they're pure, like the Big Chiefs down there, they pure tambourine bands. That's all it is. And then they sing da 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 da. So I started saying, "Take me back to Washago," because it's like the gateway to the Muskokas, and I was just there. And I'm starting writing this song, and I'm realizing it's a tambourine song. But then all of a sudden, it just starts telling me what it wants to be. And all of a sudden, a bass line creeps in. Then a guitar part creeps in. And then it takes off. So it starts as a tambourine song. And it's got Washago, which is just a place I've been, and I like the word. It's fun to say. Like, it rolls off, your tongue easily. So that's what I mean. I just got to I write whatever comes to me.
How often are you writing? Like, are you constantly writing? Like,
kind of constantly. Usually I'm always got about 3 songs on the go, and there's never any pressure to finish them because sometimes I wrote one called "Sing for My Supper." Jeff Healy used to love that one, and that has 4 verses, and it must have taken 5 minutes to write. Like as quickly as I could write, the song came out. Apparently Neil Young's like that. But I'm not usually like that. Just once that happened to me. Usually it's about 10 pages of scrap paper. Like I'll write the song out and then I'll write over certain words. And then the paper starts looking really messy because I've scribbled so many notes. So I have to rewrite it and crumple up the old one and throw it away. And 10 of those pages and then I got a song.
But is it lyrics first, always?
No, sometimes it's like a boom, 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 a bass line. Sometimes the other day it was a tambourine.
So when that bass line comes into your head, is it coming to your head through the harmonica or is it just in your head?
Just in my head and just walking. Like I don't know what the notes are. I figure it out logically later. The left brain is, I figure out later. Like, oh, G, G, E, E, like I'll figure it out what it is later, but it's just humming. People don't realize how easy it is to start a band. If they did, maybe we wouldn't get paid so much. But no, you just have to hum to a band. I could really go boom, 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 and like dance it for them. If you're a singer and you dance it, I saw Michael Jackson do it once. He was describing a song to an interviewer, and he was doing the drums, the bass, the keyboards. He was singing it all, and the parts that he couldn't sing, he would be dancing. And you just look at them and you know exactly how to play the song. Within 30 seconds, you know how to play the song.
Okay, so when did songwriting become a thing for you? Was it at the very beginning or was
right
it
away.
Learning how to play the harmonica
Right
first?
away, because it's funny, I used to have Joe Toole in my band, and he used to learn the same way as me. We'd put on an album, and then you just learn the bits you learn. Like most people treat it like school, like a regular school where you have to learn the whole song.
Right.
To me, that's not fun. You listen to the whole song, you just grab the bit that sticks out the most to you. And that's what you're satisfied with learning. It could be like one little phrase. Then you discover that one little phrase can fit in about 100 songs. You could be on stage and fit it in a totally different song and it'll totally work. And then you listen to that same album again, then you pick up 2 or 3 things. Now and then you find a song, you go, that's exactly what I would say. Everything about this song is me. Then you bother to learn the whole song.
Okay, was Whammer Jammer one of those?
Pardon me?
Whammer Jammer, was that one of those?
Yeah. Whammer Jammer right away woke me up because I thought I knew what harmonica was. And then he hits this do-do-do-do down, and I thought, a harmonica can hit that high note like that? Sounds like a trumpet, right? So right away I'm in. Whammer Jammer, I learned every note of that. Never played it live because, I don't know, I just never thought I was going to add anything to the Jay Giles version.
Right.
Like, you only do a cover if you think you can beat the original. Well, otherwise, you're just doing a lame version. You're doing no service to humanity whatsoever. Like, just doing a lame version of someone else's song is like, no, you got to feel like you can add something to it.
Right.
Or else don't even bother. So I wouldn't never bother doing that song, like Whammer Jammer.
What was your idea of the harmonica before you heard that song?
It was faded because I remember once in Ottawa, I was like 12 or something, and we're walking towards concerts downtown near the Parliament buildings. And I was saying, hey, there's harmonica to my family. And harmonica technically doesn't travel as loud as bass. The low notes should go for 10 miles or whatever. The high notes shouldn't travel that far. But for some reason, my ear could hear a harmonica. No one could hear it. And as I remember, as we got closer, gradually people started going, oh, there is a harmonica there. So for some reason, my ear just picked it out. And that's a mystery to me why I would notice harmonica above all other instruments. And it's always like, it's just a favored tone. I love harmonica, clarinet, like Benny Goodman, and that I don't really sound as much like a harmonica player as other harmonica players. Like Steve Mariner or Pickett, they sound like harmonica players. I tend to go for that like Benny Goodman. That's what I'm trying to sound like a bird. like they sound like a swamp, like an atmosphere, like earthy, right? I'm always trying to sound like the bird flying over the swamp. I want other instruments to be the swamp, like the bass and to sound like I just get images whenever I sing. Music, I always have a picture in my head.
Does your love of clarinet music, would that be one of the reasons? I always remember Mel Brown saying, if you want to be a good guitar player, listen to anything but a guitar solo.
Yeah, exactly. So organ was another huge one for me. So I started playing, it's called third position harmonica, which is automatically Dorian minor. So usually for blues harp, say the band's in E, you'd play an A harmonica, and then you're playing blues style, right? Like it's a Mixolydian scale, but you bend the flat third to make it Dorian, and that's blues. That's the flat third, the blue note, right? This one is automatically got a flat third without even bending. So it sounds a little more funky like James Brown. And organ, you can get organ-y parts if you like kind of slap your tongue on and off the harp really fast and do octaves. You can imitate an organ like a Hammond B3, and especially if you use the tremolo on your amp and then start slapping your tongue on it. So I got right into emulating clarinet and organ. So right away, I'm not trying to sound like a harp player, a harmonica player, which most guys do. They want to sound like the instrument they're playing. Right away, I'm like, no, I want to sound like a guitar player.
So are you more of a harp player first than a songwriter, or which comes first?
Well, I'm known for harmonica playing, but in my heart, I feel like I'm a songwriter. I feel like my thing that I try at, I don't try at harmonica. It comes to me. It's easy for me.
Has always been?
It's always been easy. I could just pick up stuff from records, hardly even trying. Just listen to it once and I can play it. Like it just comes to me. what I actually work on is lyrics, which no one, it's so funny. People often come up to me and they'll compliment me, right? So you should be happy someone compliments you, right? They go, that washboard, that necktie washboard is fantastic. And I'm like, yeah, it cost me $16 at Lana McQuaid. I'm like, what about the lyrics? And they're like, no comment. I'm like, well, the lyrics is actually what I was being working on here. Like, it's like, you're talking about a $16. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield. No respect here. So yeah, I work on lyrics and I care about lyrics.
But very early on in your life, you got recognized for your harmonica playing.
Yeah.
From the Ottawa Blues Festival. And you won a contest or something.
That's right. So I kept winning contests. That's right. It's like surprising everybody. Because like when I won the Ottawa Shea 106 one, I was practicing in my basement. And I was going out to see these professional harp players. They didn't know I played harmonica. Because I was just sitting in the audience like taking notes, right? So then the contest comes. They're like, what's Jerome doing here? And all of a sudden, I just blew my brains out. And I won. And they're like, what?
Did you think you were good enough to win?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you were
I
always
wouldn't
confident.
have joined the contest if I didn't think I could win. I wouldn't have even entered it.
But
and I actually didn't win right away either. Back Alley John won the first year, and then Tortoise Blue, a good buddy, he won the next year. And then I won. So I won on my third attempt.
Okay. And then I read that was one of the reasons why you moved to Toronto. I don't know if that's true or not.
Right away. Like, it was the reason why I moved to Toronto, because I couldn't have moved with a band to Toronto. No one would have had confidence in me. Like, who's this guy? All of a sudden, I win. That's the beauty of, I believe in contests, and I believe in blues societies. Like, they pick one person or a few people a year to promote, and it works. Mm-hmm. They can't pick everybody. Right. Everybody can't win every year, or else winning becomes meaningless, right? So the years I won, like that, when I won that Ottawa thing, all of a sudden all the musicians took me seriously. It's just like from not seriously, it's just some guy that's a fan of the blues, to he's a band leader. And so I put together a band, Rob Meisner, who ended up in Amanda Marshall's band. I think he's married to her now. And then Damien Arokium had already moved to Toronto, so we moved into his place. Basically, I took my band, Joe Toole I got from a band called Beat Crazy, which used to do Jay Giles tunes. So I just like plucked him out of that band. So I just basically won the contest, and then I moved with the band the next week. I just thought, I just played the best club in town. There's nowhere else to go in Ottawa. Let's go to Toronto. So we came to Toronto, and it was funny because it was Robin's Nest became Chicago's. It was a guy named Robin Harp, harmonica player. I go up to him. I say, can you come to our basement? It's right down the road and see us practice. He's like, sure, because we had no promo kit. Nothing. Just,
and what are you playing? Are you basically playing blues? Or are you playing?
We're playing kind of whatever we write, which is pretty blues based.
But all originals.
All originals. Because we started writing right away. Yeah, we just started writing. Because you're not supposed to steal in society unless you're a musician. Because musicians, we all steal. We should just start admitting it. Like everything. It's like these words I'm using now. Did I invent the English language? No. I'm borrowing it, or you could say stealing it. So all like my song ideas is like a tiny bit from a Steely Dan song, and then I'll take a tiny piece from a James Cotton song, then I'll take a tiny piece, and then I'll weave it in with the story of my actual experience. That's the most original part. Like because people can't say you're wrong when you say this happened to me. You can't argue because it did happen to me.
Okay, but
so yeah, I would write my own songs heavily borrowing from tradition. Yeah.
And what are you thinking when you move to Toronto? What are you hoping to achieve with that move and with your career at that point? And I presume at this point you're thinking you're going to be a musician. That's it.
You don't really know, because I didn't even know I was going to be a lunatic on stage. I had no idea. I was surprised as anybody else. Like, the guy comes to our practice, so we play at Chicago's. All of a sudden, I'm running all over the stage. I had no idea that was going to happen. I just got excited about being on stage, and I thought, I don't know, it's just like this part of me, like Jerome, I used to be called Jerry when I was a kid, Jumping Jerry. And all of a sudden, this kind of Jerry Lewis, like I guess I'd seen him on TV or something, he started entering my blues. Like this Jim Carrey kind of guy. Like, and I'm like, what's he doing in this blues? I was just as surprised as anybody. I didn't do it on purpose. And I guess the idea was just get a gig and then get another gig. And like, cause we started at Chicago's and then we used to take cabs. It was hilarious. We had no car, so we'd just load the drums and everything into a couple of cabs. And then we'd go to, started getting hired by Joe Freed at the Hotel Isabella. And then that was it. Joe Freed just went, I'm managing you guys. Wow. Sure. We got a manager now. And then all of a sudden we're at the Horseshoe. Then after the Horseshoe, we're at the Diamond, which became the Phoenix. I read a magazine once. It said that was about 1,000 people will be in there. So I think it's called an A club. They have A, B, and C, different sizes of venues. Right. And we sold more beer that year than any A club ever because people were young and they would dance so hard. And when you're dancing, you can drink more beer because you're wearing it off. It's not like sitting there drinking beer. You'll get too drunk. If you sweat it out, you can keep pounding them back. So, God, we were just like, and it was the punk rock era, which even though we didn't play punk rock, we played blues, you could not feel that vibe. It was in the air. You wanted to feel it because it actually went with the blues in my mind, because the blues is like, oh, we're not fancy, polyester guys trying to act like superheroes. We're just guys from, we go in the back alley and smoke a joint we're just like guys, just like kind of like, didn't wash behind our ears kind of thing. And so that whole punk thing to me totally fit with the blues.
So is this already the Phantoms? Or
yeah.
Is this
So
band?
yeah, we even wrote a song. I wrote a song called Punk Rock Blues. Like, I smoked a joint with Gatemouth Brown, because I did actually. He was really dignified. Clarence Gatemouth Brown invited me and two girls back to his hotel room after he played, and he was such a gentleman. He didn't come on to the girls. He didn't come on to me. He was dignified, showed us his promo kit, and all he wanted to do was smoke some hash, so we did. I just love these blues guys. Like, he was really dignified, I thought, and really was happy to meet him. So, I just put him in my song called Punk Rock Blues, and, and I've always been trying to add something to the blues without breaking it, because sometimes you do wreck it. I've tried things like experiments where I was like, okay, I went too far here, but you just pull it back then, and you keep trying to I don't want to sound just like Little Walter. I mean, personally, I think no one's ever had a harp sound better than him, but copying him's just not an option. I gotta at least try and make a better sound than him, even though I haven't succeeded yet.
So at that point, are you a singer, a songwriter, or harmonica, or all?
Well, it's
What do you
always
consider
been the perception that I'm a harmonica player, front man, I guess, because I'm entertaining like in a Mick Jaggerish kind of way. But in my head, I'm always a songwriter lyricist. So the way the world sees me is never the way I see myself. Which is okay. It's not that tough to live with. It's just I just stick to my thing. I write songs,
But there's success, or there's a falling very quickly, and it just keeps growing when you come to Toronto.
It grew so fast. It was unbelievably fast. And then all these other bands were making it too. Like Blue Rodeo was on the scene. Unknown, just like us. Tragically Hip, same thing. Unknown, just like us. And we knew them. We'd hang around. Joe Toole and Gord Downey shared an apartment. Like, everyone was a nobody, and over, bands popped out. Like Jeff Healey. We used to go to Branco's jam with the McGrossmans. We were all nobodies, right? And then they kept making it. And what I discovered, I always wondered why it was either me or Joe, the guitar player, would always sabotage our chances at success. Like,
In what way?
Okay, the most obvious one I remember was Toronto Music Awards. Joe Toole was outrageously drunk, and he had just played like sober for like all week long, and we just knocked it out of the park every night. And on that big one, he's like, "Oh, much music and fuck this shit," right? So, and me, I remember I'm singing "Home," which is one of our most innocent songs. I wrote it about a time we visited Joe Toole's home and his dad. I could see the warmth in his eyes towards his son. So it's one of our nicer songs. And this guy is standing there. The stage is up to the guy's chest, and there's a row of beers on the stage. And we're being filmed. You know, it's big Toronto Music Awards. And the guy is kind of dissing me on stage. Now, as an adult now, I would nowadays I just look over his head and look at the people who love me out there, and I just focus on them. But I was young and I didn't know that. So I focused on the guy who was like telling me, "Screw off," he's giving me the finger and stuff. And instead of like thinking about the song, I'm thinking about this guy. So I'm not singing now. And I noticed the beers are all lined up on the stage. So I just go with my little big toe and I start knocking them right on his shirt, right? And so my primary motivation is getting this guy wet instead of singing the song, right? So stuff like that, we just like sabotage our careers. And then it's only making sense to me as of last month, Marco. Because you see all this P. Diddy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how many, like Jimi Hendrix dies when he's young, Kurt Cobain, all these people that, Jim Morrison, that didn't seem to want to follow along with any agenda rather than the one coming from their heart, like they disappear.
Right.
So it's almost like becoming known these days that if you're successful as a musician, some political force or nefarious force is going to try and own you and control your output. And if you behave properly, they'll give you lots of money, you know, and you'll succeed. But I didn't know any of that until like last month, that like people got owned like that in the music business. Like,
But you guys got a record contract with A&M, and
Yeah.
and you had total creative control, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, but before that, we turned down a deal with Chris Blackwell, tried to sign us
Right.
from Island Records, who had just signed U2 and Bob Marley. We said no.
Because?
They wanted to get rid of my rhythm section. And they were actually right, because the rhythm section wasn't world class in my eyes. But the thing is, I made a deal with them because we moved from Ottawa as brothers, right? Like,
Right.
There's 4 guys in the band. They moved out of their house for me, okay? So I'm not going to take a deal that cuts them out. There is a band. A band is 4 guys. It's not one guy.
Right.
It's
But-
4 guys.
I mean, knowing you a little, it doesn't come as a surprise to me at all that you would make that choice. However,
I'm so glad I did. Because now
so
I
you
can
never
look those
regret-
guys in the eye.
but you never looked back and regretted it.
Not for a second. Because, okay, first of all, if I had taken that deal, I would have been on my own with new guys. And I don't even think, like, now I have the skill to direct any musicians that I meet. Right. Anyone. I could have any band that I've never met, and I could put together a show with them basically on the stage. We don't even need to rehearse. I'll tell them within 30 seconds what I want, and it'll be easy enough for them to play.
Right.
And then from there, I'll just keep leading and say, hey, this. And they can just on the spot play it. And we can play all night like that. At the time, I didn't have that skill, right? And I think I would have felt bad for betraying my friend's trust because we had like, life's about agreements. Mm-hmm. If you don't have agreements and you don't keep them, it's chaos. The world's chaos. You need agreements. Words, if words don't mean anything like agreements, why am I singing? They have to mean something. So
Oh, for
when I
sure.
say I'm in a band with you guys, that means we're a band. So it doesn't matter if Chris Blackwell wants me, even for a good reason. He wanted just me. And then I said no to this. Lee Silverside was his representative in Canada. I said, no, Lee. I told him some story about how Mickey Mouse needs Minnie Mouse and Goofy. Didn't seem to have much of him. He was like, this guy's a real flake. But I didn't care. I don't need to impress him because basically the only agreement I had was with my band.
So do you tell your band that this offer was made to you? Or do you not
Yeah,
tell
no,
them?
I told them. And then eventually they changed it. They came back and they said, we'll take you and the guitar player, which could have worked, actually, because I think our rhythm section could have been stronger. Like Greg, I'm playing with him right now, our drummer. He's actually a fantastic guitar player. He's one of my favorite guitar players in the world. I'm actually working with him now on guitar. But I don't think he's the greatest drummer in the world. And he was our drummer back then. And so they were kind of right. I'm not calling them dumb. But they wanted me to break an agreement that I have. And so, no, because I don't have an agreement. And that gives me a strength to this day. I think I'm entertaining because I know my agreements. I go up there and I have an agreement with the band, not the audience, actually. The audience, I have one agreement: show up on time. I have no agreement to play what they want.
Right.
They're not in the band. And that gives me feels like a superpower because I don't have to kiss their ass. I got no agreement with the audience. I got agreement with my band. So that's what makes it a band. It's almost like us against the world, right? And if you want to follow our vision, go ahead. But we don't need you to. Like one time we got heckled on stage and I loved it. My guitar player, Joe Toole, bless him. He's like, he goes, we gotta stay, but you don't. That's pretty clear. We got a deal with the club. We gotta stay. You don't.
How soon did the A&M deal come by after the Island Records deal?
I'm amazing that actually even got signed, like at all, because I remember we were just the cockiest assholes ever. Like we wanted control over everything. Like we wanted control over like T-shirts. I didn't want them going like, what if someone designs one I don't like?
Right.
Like I don't want my face on a T-shirt. To me, it might scare me. If I was walking down the street and I saw my own face on someone's T-shirt, I think I'd be shocked and I might feel sick or something. Like, so we wrote one that was upside down. It said, no more bullshit for me, but it was so that you could read it yourself. It was written upside down so that as you're walking down the street, you could read, no more bullshit for me. So like to us, that was vitally important. And then of course, to a record company, they're like, why are we even talking about T-shirts, you lunatics? Like, it's a music deal. It's like, but we're like, no, we need control. So we sabotaged ourselves for unconscious reasons. It's only recently I see they were valid reasons. We were doing it subconsciously. I might not be talking to you if I had gotten a big deal back then. Because, like, if people offer me like pussy and endless drugs, I'd probably die. I'd have no sperm and I'd like just have no lungs, because I'd be like smoking all the hash in the world. So it's like only starting to feel safe for me now to succeed. And even then I'm wondering if I want to succeed in that business,
Did you deal with a guy named Pat Ryan at A&M?
I don't remember that name. I don't even remember anyone's name at A&M because I was so interested in everything else about music but the business.
So what
I
was
just
it
didn't
like?
even care. Like, I had Big Ben, and he was the business head. So I just trusted him completely with all the business. I just went, Ben will figure it out. It's like if you meet someone who does dishes, like as soon as the plate's finished being eaten, you tend not to do dishes as much, even though normally you might.
Right.
Like now I'll do more business because no one else is doing it. But Ben was so good at it and so interested in it, I just left it all to him.
Interesting. So, do you have any idea what you were hoping to accomplish with that album deal? Or what that meant to you?
Not really. It's just more of a learning process. Because, I mean, I learned from that album that I'm not that good at putting together the order of songs. Like, I'm good at writing songs. But guys like, I just see guys like Chuck Jackson so good at, like, from Downchild.
Yeah.
He just knows what song to do next. And then it's a satisfying flow to the whole set. I always need help with that for some reason. I'm just not the best. It's like, people know how to write the whole movie, like the flow and then where it should come down. I always need help at that. I'm good at individual scenes, which is individual songs. That's what I'm good at.
Say that at this point in your career.
I just like asking for outside help on the order and even titles, like for albums and songs. I'm not. I kind of think I know what I'm good at, and what I'm not good at, I like to ask for help.
Right. Okay.
And that's what a band is too. Like other guys are strong in certain areas, and they'll help you out.
But did that deal get you access to more live gigs? Did it expand your audience?
Yes, at the beginning, but then we had an unfortunate accident which derailed the first tour. So it was cool because we'd go west across Canada, and all these A&R reps are there from A&M Records, and they were great. They were getting us interviews, getting us in the newspaper. And we just thought that would continue forever, which was fun. Like, having people support you is a great, great feeling. And then we went all the way out west, and then we're coming back, and some person in this hugest kind of truck that you can buy, it's still a personal truck, was drinking and driving, and they rammed right into the back of our trailer. Luckily, Ben had a trailer, and he had it, like, it was all good gear. We had a good van. But I used to sleep in the back. And I remember I was listening to Sun Ra, and I was on LSD. Because we had a day off, and after the gig, I did LSD. And I thought I'd just lie in my coffin like Dracula back there and trip out. And I'm listening to these trumpets. And Sun Ra's music's kind of avant-garde jazz. I actually saw him in Montreal. And it sounds like the trumpets are metal and they're being squashed on the road. And all of a sudden, bang! And my whole compartment in the back, because it hit the back first, right? Got crumpled in. And it was wild because there was no worry at all in my mind. I was like, slow motion, just moving, like going with the crumpling metal around me. And somehow I knew I would find a space big enough for my body as the metal crumpled. I just kind of moved with it, right? It was very like being a salamander or something. and then I remember after the accident, I kicked open the back door and got out. And then it's wild how your mind, Joe Toole understood this perfectly on his deathbed. He explained it to me exactly what I'd done. Because in my mind, I turned the story into that I ran back for Greg and got him out of the van. But it was actually Joe who did it. It was funny because I wrote it down right after it happened. And then I was shocked when I reread it years later, because I had changed it in the mind. People do this. Like Joe Toole knew the exact psychological thing that I had done. I made myself into the hero in my mind. But actually, I was sick. Like, felt like I was going to puke. I was on the side of the highway, like lying there. And the van was on fire too. So we thought it might explode. And in my mind, I thought I ran and got Greg, but it was actually Joe. And then later on, Joe's on his deathbed. And I'm telling him this. I'm admitting that I made myself the hero, like without wittingly knowing I was doing it. And he goes, I forget what the word was. He goes, "Oh yeah, I've read about that. That's just transference thing." And he knew all about it. And I was like, Oh my God, Joe Toole. It was like that band was really like brothers. It was like a family. Joe Toole was my older brother. I took care of Greg. Maybe that's why I thought I saved him because I was always saving him.
Right.
Like my job was to protect Greg, who's now my guitar player, who was our drummer. Joe's wasn't to inspire me. He was always telling me, like, listen to this song. Play harp like this. And like a little bratty younger brother, I would like argue with him, and then I'd realize 2 weeks later he was right. Like he was one of the first guy that told me to play first position harmonica on rock and roll. Well, Kim Wilson does that. It like he told me before I heard Kim Wilson do it. He was trying to tell me, Jerome, don't play all that clarinet jazz crap on rock and roll. Play major. And I was like, no, major, that's for Mary Had a Little Lamb and Christmas Carols. They're major, right? And he's trying to tell me this, and I'm not getting it. And all of a sudden, Kim Wilson comes out with all these hits, and he's doing it. And I was like, oh, Joe's right. Okay. You know, so he was like an older brother. And I think Ben was his older brother.
Oh.
Because Ben was the only one that could keep up with Joe with partying. Like, Joe was like exactly like one of my older brothers. They're scary. They're supposed to be scary. They do things that are older than you that
Right.
you can't see. You're too young and innocent, right? Like, so Joe was always held that mysterious position plus inspiring me. He always knew my next step in learning music. He always knew to tell me, right? And it's funny because he used to have a gruff way of telling you. It's only now I realize it was wisdom that just sounded gruff. Like, instead of saying to me, say, Jerome, don't, like, because I used to look like Jim Morrison from The Doors when I was young, very much like him, right? So instead of saying, Jerome, don't imitate The Doors, he'd just go, I hate The Doors. And then it was so funny because it worked. Like, we never talked about The Doors again in the band, ever, after he said that. It's just like, it totally worked. And now later I'm going, he's kind of a gruff Charles Bukowski kind of genius guy, actually, because he knows how to direct things in a really fast way, right? And it's so funny because now that I'm 62 now, and all of a sudden the Doors are really interesting to me again because Joe's not there. And plus I've made enough albums, like it's obvious who Jerome Godboo is. Now, if
Did you not just do a Doors thing?
Yeah, I just started. And it's fun. It's really fun.
That's funny.
I know, because my whole life I ran away from wanting to be in a cover band. I'm like, I'm original. Even Jeff Healey used to do covers. And I was like, so everyone around me is doing covers. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm writing my own. And then finally now I just feel like, look, I've obviously said who I am musically. Now it's really interesting to try and get the Doors, the vibe right. Because I feel he was a more caring character than is perceived. A lot of people portray him as a lewd guy. I'm like, those were just a few moments where he had too many beers and he was tired. His essence is not lewd.
Right.
Like, so anyway, I'm hoping to get it right. And I'm having so much fun because the music is so much softer and jazzier than I would imagine. Like, even John Densmore, I'm starting to play drums. I want to play like him. Like, it's not like Bonham is great, you know. This is a same energy but quiet. Like, John Densmore is incredibly peppy. It's like do 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 do. It's like jazz.
But are you actually playing drums on the gig?
Yeah, no, not on gigs. Okay. It's just for my own. Like, remember I said learning is the best part of music. Yeah. It really is. Like, when your synapses in your brain is firing and learning new things, you feel fantastic. So I've got a set of drums that I just set up in a new apartment, and it's not going to bother anybody. And geez, I'm just so looking forward to playing more. I found that already I'm picking it up really fast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if we go back to that accident, you said that derailed the band.
Yes. Sorry, I got off topic, but
No.
That ended our first tour, and then it just tanked that first album because there was no promo. There was no tour to follow it up. We were supposed to just keep going out east.
Right.
And basically what happened was our drummer who was in front of me, I didn't get injured. I felt sick. But he got a spinal injury.
Ooh.
But even then, everything in life teaches you stuff, you know? Like we got Randy Cook on drums for a while, and not enough to finish the tour, but just to do a few Toronto dates that were, like, we couldn't really cancel them. It was too late. Like, it was in a week.
Right.
You know, I learned I could jam with anybody. Like, I thought at that point, I only knew how to be in one band. It took me, after the Phantoms, I learned that I could jam with anybody. I didn't know that at the time.
So after the jam, so at one point the band disbanded.
Oh, when it disbanded, yeah, that was a surprise. Because our road manager, Keith Rudick, who now works with the Bare Naked Ladies, he's been with them for like 20 years or something. He had this great vision. He had the money and everything. He's like, we're going to go in the studio. There's a song, She's Loving Me to Death, that I wrote. And he's like, we're going to record that. I'm thinking, oh, this band meeting is going really well. And then all of a sudden, Big Ben Richardson quits. And I'm like, oh, why are you quitting? And he goes, well, I got work with Jeff Healy Band. I'm going to be this sound man, and I'm going on tour. And I'm like, well, that pays well. And you do enjoy doing sound. Like, he's, out of all of us, he's the one most likely to take a background position in the music business. Like, because he was our manager, and he's just good at background things, right?
Is.
So I'm like, that made sense. I'm not going to try and hold him back. But then I was really surprised because Joe quit on the same day. And then it ended up that Joe ended up just like becoming a bluegrass player. Well, no one noticed. Like he quit, and then he just played and practiced at home. I discovered him 10 years later, and he had written like 3 albums with great lyrics. And like, his singing's better than mine. I'm sorry. It's just better. He like, it just rolls out of his voice. Like he's like Johnny Cash. Like, he's got an incredible voice. So it was just amazing that he let me be the singer when he's that good in the Phantoms. So he quit, and I had a little side band with Greg, our drummer, where Greg was playing guitar, right? And then so all I did is, there was no fuss on my part. I just let it go instantly, and I just said, hey, Greg, you want to make a band? That was it. I was like, Greg, you're the new guitar player. And then we did really well. Like, we got tons of gigs.
Was that Jerome?
That was, it went from Phantoms to Deep Down to One Monkey. And then at that point, I was like sick of names. I was like, I'm just using the name that I always had, Jerome Godboo. And the whole band was like, yeah. There's like no argument. They're like, that makes sense. Just use your name. Like, because like other people are coming and going. You're the only constant. Just use your name. Like, just respect your parents almost. Like,
so was
just,
that
like
different for you? Like, or it was pretty well the same thing. It's just
it's the
different
same
name.
thing, just different name. It's always a band.
Right.
Like, even if it's got my name, like Sean Kellerman's allowed to steal the show in Jerome Godboo Band, because that's how it goes. It's always going to be a band. It's just my name, but it's always a band. It's always, my biggest fear in a band is telling someone what to do who already knows what to do. Like, you don't tell Al Cross what to do on drums. Like, you could be potentially chopping off his 50 years of experience playing drums. I'm a singer. Why would I tell him what to do? He's been thinking about it every day and every night for 50 years. It's way better if I just go in and go, I'm going to do this. And I just start doing what I do. And then just wait. And he'll come up with something, and it'll always be better than what I could imagine.
Right.
And then my song just got twice as good than what I wrote.
But did you always know that? Did you always have this ego that was very accommodating, or
yeah,
in a younger day would it be different?
Yeah, no, because when I was young, I was always like the best. Like, I was always like, I never wanted to fight anyone, but now and then the toughest guy in the school would say the wrong thing to me, and I'd just cream him in about 2 seconds. So, and then I'd just go, okay, so what, And then I'd be like, I think when I was pretty young, I was like, in baseball, I was captain of my team. We're called the Medics. We were the blue team. And and then we have the all-star team. And then, I was never trying to be a leader, but they would just make me one, right? Like, so I became captain of the all-star team. And one time in school, too, I left the classroom to go to the bathroom. When I came back, I was the president of the classroom. It voted me in when I couldn't object. I was out of the room. So I've always been thrown into these leadership positions. But the thing is, I lead like I'm the last guy in line. That's why I guess I get the job, because I just listen to everybody and I go, well, he knows more about that than me, so we'll just follow him. So I'm basically a leader who makes other people leaders.
Right.
I just go, you're in charge of that department. You are in charge of booking us. You are in charge of that because you're way better than anybody else. And I'll be in charge of my singing and lyrics. And they're like, okay, you're the leader. But basically, I just delegated. Like,
I know that you kind of stepped away from music, but before that, did you ever question being a musician?
I never thought I'd be a musician. I thought I wanted to be a cop. And I'm glad I didn't, because they work for people and I've seen so many cops embarrassed to tell me to do stuff because they got ordered to do it. So I'm so glad I didn't become a cop. But I just thought justice would be nice, and being helpful to people and protecting people would be nice. So the music thing was kind of an accident, because my younger brother is a brilliant guitar player. He plays flamenco, classical. He plays everything. He can play Bach to blues. He just knows every style. He's just this genius. And then my older brothers, they play guitar too. So when I was a kid, they gave me this book of rhyming couplets. I think it was not Edgar Allan Poe, the other guy, Poe. What's his name? Alexander Poe. It's all rhyming couplets. It's just like rock and roll lyrics. They rhyme, right? And they just said, read this. So we had a little green tape machine, plastic, and I took the little microphone and I just read what they gave me, and that was how I became a singer. They just gave me the mic and said, read this poem. And so I read it, and they played guitar, and this was just at home. And then all of a sudden I had this idea, hey, let's call our band Northrop Frye, the first band. And he was a literary critic that we liked. I remember I read his book later, but at the time he was on the cover of Maclean's magazine. And I just loved him because he loved literature. And he just seemed like a little kid, even though he's a professor of U of T. He had this little kid enthusiasm about writers, right? So we called our band Northrop Frye, and we wrote all our own songs. And I got it on a cassette somewhere. We were a band. And I don't know, I just kept getting given the mic, and people it was just encouraged. I even remember after Northrop Frye, I would see a guitar player, and I would just Damien Orokim, who plays with me now. He was technically younger than me, but he was already playing in professional bands. He was about 15. And I'd just be an audience guy, and this must have happened to you. You go, I want that guy as my guitar player. It's just this thing. You just go, I want that guy. And then you end up jamming with him, and he'll say something which might not be true. I remember one of the first guys I jammed with, Graham Winston Hancock. Yeah, he was a beautiful dude. He goes, you sound just like B.B. King. Well, I'm I know I don't sound like B.B. King, but I'm that means I got the job, right? I'm the singer, right? So I just kept getting chosen as a singer. So I just kept saying yes, and same with leader of all these things, or even in fighting, maybe I got good because I had older brothers, and they wouldn't really beat me up, but they'd throw me around, and I get good at and fighting with people that were superior in strength and ability than me. So that makes you good at something, right? So I had tons of practice. My older brother's like kicking me around in a nice way, you know. And so by the time I got to school, it was like no one could beat me up. But here I am. And so many guys picked on me too because I come across as kind of effeminate sometimes because I like dancing and, you know, talking to the girls. And they're like, who's this popular little skinny guy talking to all the girls? And then they pick on me and it's like, surprise, effeminate guy just walloped you. Like, so I'm kind of like the guy who likes alpha males. I invite them into my band. I let them be alphas. But if I ever really disagree with them, I'll take them out. I'll take them out. Like, they don't know that. It's like I love lions, you know, the big lion, and I let them lead. But I'm a tiger. They think I'm just lazy, like lying in the shade, right? But occasionally a tiger can take on a lion. So sometimes they find that out to their dismay. Like, I don't like trumping people. I don't enjoy it. And I don't enjoy being a boss. I'd rather have people that are smarter than me telling me what to do. I love that because then you're learning.
Right.
People don't realize, like, everyone seems to fight for this boss position. It's a terribly boring position because everything you're telling other people, you already know. So you're not learning a thing. Like, to me, a boss, I would only be one out of desperation because everyone else is doing such a bad job. That's why I would be a boss, just to make things run properly. But if I could find someone who does it better than me, I'll just make them the boss. And then I can just have fun.
Okay, so when I reached out to you a few years ago and I said, would you do this podcast? And you said, I think I'm going to stop playing for a while.
Yeah.
And concentrate on my meditation.
Yeah.
For the spring and the summer. And maybe if something comes up and I'm back into music again, we can have a chat.
Yeah.
Tell me about that decision. This was, I think, 2019, so it would have been before the pandemic.
Well, like, no one's going to understand this, but I'll just say meditation's the best thing I ever discovered. It's way better than music. Like, meditation, it starts out tough, you know. You're just, like, trying to pay attention to your breath. You think I can't meditate because your mind's going everywhere. But then you start to realize, hey, this is great. I realize I can't control my mind. That's actually a good discovery. Like, thoughts happen by themselves. Then when you eventually do quiet it down, you can go into your body. And sometimes you find unpleasant feelings in there. Queasy feelings, tight spots. It's unpleasant work. But as you go through them, the stories of your life start to emerge. And then at the same time you're dropping the story, you're actually seeing it as you're dropping it. So you keep going back to just reality. Like, it's pretty hard to deny the reality of your own body. It's pretty real. So it's not very abstract. But all these abstract things come out of it. Memories and things. So it's a very valuable process going in. And the more you it's a purification process. The more you get a grip on reality and these gross, heavy parts of your start dissolving and coming out, and you're learning not to get attached to the speed of them coming out too. Like, 'cause, like, you make a zillion mistakes when you meditate, but you keep seeing your mistakes. That's the beautiful part about it. You keep seeing where you go wrong, where you get too ambitious, all these things. Like, sometimes it gets so overwhelming how many things are wrong with you. It's hard to be a quantumist, like they're teaching you. And then you realize that's just the classical dark night of the soul. It just seems like the ignorance is almost overwhelming. But then guess what happens after the dark night of the soul? The sun comes up and it's a new day. And then you realize, just ride with the dark night of the soul. Don't even worry about when your life's in chaos and in trouble. Because it comes from within you, actually. Like, this is the part I'm just learning, so I can't be sure when I'm telling you about this. But my inclination is that the more I solve my own inner issues of basically wrong ways of thinking, of conceptualizing the world, the more I get accurate at just being with the laws of the universe, being okay with the way the operations of life actually run rather than the way I'd like them to run, the more I can be with that, the more I believe eventually bad dramas will cease to exist. And I think if I can purify myself enough, good things will happen in the outside world, because my lack of fear of bad things and my lack of resistance to bad things is now I've like conquered it. So they don't actually need to happen. Like I'm getting a little profound now, but that's kind of the point I'm at. And I feel like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I'm waiting for a sign, and like, honestly, from a bird or God, like should I be a musician or should I just dive further into meditation? Because meditation is really, really valuable to me.
Are they connected in any way? I mean, I'm sure they're connected because it's through you, but did whatever you were going through in music lead you to meditation, or does it have any connection at all?
A total connection, because the funny thing is, okay, when you're a musician at my level, not Buddy Guy books a year in advance or 2 years in advance. If you're on my level, it's 3 months in advance. So basically, every week I do a few gigs, then I book 3 months in advance. So I got something. So I started going to these 10-day meditation retreats. Well, that's almost 2 weeks of not booking yourself.
Sorry, can I ask you why you decided to first look at meditation and go into meditation?
Yeah, desperation. No, really. I was like, it kind of happened. I had a kid, and all of a sudden, like, I was a popular musician. Mm-hmm. Guys like me, girls like me, right? Like, platonically, guys, but, everybody liked me. So I was groovy. I had a kid. All of a sudden, I'm like, I gotta grow up now. And I had the idea, my wife at the time brought back a pamphlet from a yoga class, and I started reading it. It was about a 10-day meditation. So I'm thinking, I can't really leave her with a kid, a newborn. Like, that's a lot of work and a lot of diapers, right? And she's like, no, go. I'm like, sure, if you're willing to hold the fort down,
so
like,
what
that's
do you
hard.
think she saw in you that thought this was important?
I don't know. We'd have to ask her, but she willingly sent me away. And every time I've ever gone away, the woman I was with loves me way more when I come back. Like, my love is way better. When I come back from a 10-day, I can just focus on her and nothing else. It's like all the things like around me that usually distract me with a kind of ADHD personality, like all those things on the exterior, I'm able to just turn them way down and just focus on the person I want to focus on, which is her. And how you doing? And actually really caring, like really wanting an answer, whatever the answer is, so they love it when, like, they don't get you for 10 days, but when you come back, you're twice as valuable.
And so in the first 10-day session, you came back a different person.
Yeah. But it wore off. That's the part I didn't realize. Like, I came back very, like, feeling very enlightened, and then I realized, whoa, this isn't, like, it's not permanent. Like, I still have tons of ignorance in me, which eventually came back out. Like, you're kind of, been meditating a lot, so your best behavior is kind of easy to access. But then eventually, you just get in stressful situations. You got to work, and then before you know it, you're just freaking out like a normal person again, and you're kind of surprised. You're like, oh, where did my meditative charm go? But then, that's just, you just be okay with that eventually too, because life is kind of like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 forward, 1 back. Or you could say life is a bunch of circles, but they actually go forward too. Like, it's like, I think life, my older brother told me this once, I didn't understand it, but I think I get it now. Life isn't just a circle. Like, there's a painting he showed me, a horse going around a track over and over, and it's very dark, and it's like, he goes, life's not actually like that. it's got an arrow going through the circle. So things tend to repeat themselves and come around, but in a slightly evolved way, which is like a spiral or a horn of plenty, or I think DNA even looks like that. So it's all abstract things I'm saying, but I think we keep going through the same things, but slightly different.
Can I ask you, you mentioned something about being a musician that had a following and people loved you, both male and female.
Yeah, yeah.
What does that do to a person? What did that do to you where you're surrounded by people who...
It brings you a certain satisfaction for the time, because at the time I wanted to be successful enough to make a living from playing music, and the applause was worth a lot. But then it's only later you discover things are even better. It's not like applause ever becomes bad. It's
Right.
always good. But then there's other things that are become more important, right? And I realized I had been like a baby in my family of 7 kids. It's me and my little brother, like, who I used to protect. He was 11 months younger, but we were the 2 babies. So I never really had babies. So I didn't really know how to be with babies. Luckily, I had neighbors and stuff that taught me, like, they like to be burped, and you could be a lot rougher with them than you think. Like, they love it when you kind of roll them on your shoulder. So I started learning all about babies, and it just felt so interesting, to just be a dad. I think my music vastly improved. It was like this huge injection of maturity. I remember realizing that on the first album, like, we put out the first Phantoms album, and I was really obviously not committal to any girl at the time, because we were going to Edmonton, and then we're going to Calgary. So I just told every girl, honestly, I don't want a girlfriend, but I'll make love to you. And I was kind of cheap them out too. Like, sometimes I give them 5 minutes of my time. I think I might have broken a few hearts or something, or left a few of them unsatisfied, but I didn't care, because that was my promise. Like I said, a deal is a deal. Whatever I say to you is the deal. So I wasn't promising them much, right? But then when I did get married and have a kid, my lyrics started maturing. And then I looked back my album, like, say, for instance, there was 2 indie bands, the Phantoms, and then there was what's that band, Shakespeare My Butt, Lowest of the Low. Well, the guy obviously from Lowest of the Low had long-term relationships, so I listened to his lyrics, and they were like way better than mine. I'm like, okay, mine are a little shallow because of the choices I made to just skip from girl to girl to girl. And I wasn't lying about it. I was just like, this is what I'm doing. And if you want to say no, that's fine. You don't have to sleep with me. Like, I'm just telling you straight, right? So anyway, being in a longer term relationship, learning how to really satisfy the needs of a woman on a longer term thing became very valuable to me as a person, and made my music better. And you asked earlier how meditation affected my music. I went away to meditate, so I shouldn't have I had big holes in my schedule. The thing is, it happened twice. I came back and I got a better offer than any musician in Toronto. One time, I just came back from meditation, and there's a big blues summit at the Delta Chelsea. Mm-hmm. So I usually go there to see bands, because I steal ideas from bands. That's what I do. If I see a good idea, I write it down and I steal it. It's my idea now.
So that's a musical idea?
A musical idea.
Okay.
It could be anything. I could even record their music and steal bits, or something they do, or something they say, or some little dance. I just steal. Anything I like, I just take it, and no one can ever recognize it. Once it's in my song, they don't know I stole it. So anyway, I'm there to collect ideas. I'm racing to see Carlos Del Junco, because he's on in the next room. This guy, I don't realize he's general manager of the hotel, but I didn't know that. I just thought he was some guy, because he introduces me to his wife. And luckily, I just come back from meditation, so I'm trying to be in the now. I'm trying not to blow him off, like, excuse me, bye. I want
Right.
to see Carlos Del Junco, right? So I'm standing there for 5 minutes before he brings up he's general manager and he wants to hire me to do a weekly gig right there where the blues bands are. So I'm kind of like, at this point, kind of glad I didn't blow him off, you know? And then he goes, what do you want? I say, $9.50. That's outrageous. Like, you don't even get that on a one gig, like, let alone every single week. And then, can I have the meals for the band too? And 2 beers each for each guy. So now I got a budget. A lot of people in the Toronto music business, I wish they'd remember this, but I hired different bass player, different drummer every week. Every week it was promoted as like a jazz thing where every musician counts.
Yeah, I remember that.
Like I could have had my own band there and then forced my guests, say Michael Pickett, oh, you have to play with my band. To me, that's not much of a host. So maybe I learned that from meditation. Be polite to your guests. Hire their band. So then I would play with their band. So now I'm at a disadvantage, but an advantage as far as learning goes. So I'm learning more, but I don't look as good right away.
Right.
So anyway, I'd end up going on with their band, and then they come up. And I made like $9.50. And then all of a sudden, that's the best paying gig ever. And I got it for like 2 years it lasted. And that's from going to meditate. I figure I must have smelt psychically good or something. I don't know how I got it. And then the guy at the Sky Lounge, who's run lots of bars, Phil, he goes, I hear you're doing really good at the Delta Chelsea there, which became the Eaton Chelsea. And I say, yeah, but you can't afford it. Like, you know, I'm making $9.50 there. And he goes, oh man, I'm paying my bands like, you know, $500 or $600. So I say, tell you what, don't tell anybody. I'll give you a deal, $700. So I get that one too. So now I've got every Thursday, every Sunday, plus my weekend gigs. I got a nice place. I'm raising a family. I'm paying dentist bills. I'm buying shoes and computers and skateboards for my kids. Like, from going to meditate to that. So it did give me some kind of magical luck.
Okay, so at one point you decide, well, do I want to continue with music or not? How do you come to that realization?
You just wait for signs from the universe. That's what I'm doing right now. Like last night was a sign. And believe me, these guys know I love them and I respect them. Like Eric Shankman, Spin Doctors, you know, this is like Glenn Milcham, like, you know, Blue Rodeo. Like they're seriously great and I had seriously great fun. But it's not what I'm going to do. It's just a gut feeling. It's just a gut feeling. I'm not doing that.
But do you still enjoy yourself when you play in that?
Totally.
setting?
I had a ball last night. But I'm not going to keep doing that. It's almost like we already know how to do it. There's no adventure in it. It's like, I don't know, like running a certain little race and then you just know you win every time. It's just like boring. You need to go to a bigger league. You need to go to a new league, like go to the NHL now where you're not as the best player. Like you need to do something to challenge yourself, you know?
But it's not about money. It's about challenge.
Yeah. It's about learning. Souls want to learn. That's why we're born. So we'll learn something that we didn't know when we got here.
Right.
So I need to keep learning. That's what makes you feel joyful. That's what makes your brain come alive and all the synapses start firing and you feel like $1,000,000 because you're not on like complete, like there's a level of going to the edge. You don't want to go to the edge where you're scared shitless, right? Because that's useless. You're just too scared. You can't function. But you want to challenge yourself. You want to be just on some kind of edge of learning, like a safe enough edge, but still an edge where you're uncertain of like how to be in this new role. It's like getting a new job. You just come alive. You're like, how do I do this job? You got to figure it out now.
Okay, but so you're saying you want the universe to tell you
Yeah.
Are you confident that the universe will tell you one way or
Yeah.
another?
If I wait, yeah.
And it will, I mean, I can't imagine you giving up music, but you're willing, if it doesn't come to you, then it's not going to happen.
Look, like Joe Toole gave up music. And then me and Alec, it was funny. We quit Jimmy Boskill band on the same day. We were playing like these huge concerts, like in these big palaces that the Russians owned in Ukraine. And then we both quit. And then we both had no gig. We were actually sharing a house. And then Alec Fraser goes, Jerome, call Joe Toole. Like he was my alpha. He's always bossing me around, but he's always right. He's more right than me, like 98% of the time. So I always do what he says. So he's like, Jerome, call Joe Toole. So I called Joe Toole, and Joe's like, sure, come on over. Well, the guy's written like 3 albums. Like he's playing banjo now. Alec, I felt dumb because I felt like, okay, I've been playing rock and funk with these guys for years in bands, Alec Fraser and Joe Toole. I had no idea they're both grew up on country and bluegrass. So they're talking this language that I don't know. And they're going to town. Like they're just, Alex, like, can I bring my bass? And I'm like, yeah, you can come. You told me to call him. You're invited. He's like, great. So he drives us over there. Those two guys just start hitting it. And I'm like, I'm hearing the banjo. It's going. Unlike blues, like there's gaps in blues where I can play. I'm like, where do you play on this trickling stream? There's no holes. Then out of desperation, I'm like, well, I'll just do what the vocal's doing, because the vocal's singing over that crazy banjo, which is taking, in my mind, taking up all the space. It's notes constantly. There's no gaps like other kinds of music. So I do long melodies. I figure that's okay. Then I realize there's violin players that play bluegrass. So I start copying them, and I realize, man, the harp can sound exactly like a violin. So I kind of figured it out, and they kept encouraging me, like, you're playing great, just play the blues. And I knew I didn't know how to play it. Those guys are funny because they're both like older brothers than me. They, when I think I can't do something, they'll encourage me. When I get cocky and I think I can do something, they'll put me down. they're the best. Like, I love guys that are older than you, that have lived a little longer. Like, they know just what to say to you to get you to kind of grow up a little. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with Broken Joe, and it was just one ending, one beginning. And that's how music goes. It's like one chapter closes, another opens. So I'm right at in between right now, but I'm never going to worry about it again, because it's a constant. One chapter closes, one opens. If you're in between, don't worry about it. Just keep your eyes open. Just like,
I mean, does that wisdom come from meditation?
yeah. Yeah. And from life, like just watching one band. Like, it was the most illogical thing for me and Alec to quit that band, because the next Jimmy Boskill's going to Japan next. So we basically fired ourselves from going to Japan, which would have been a lot of fun. But under principle, we didn't like something in the band. Had nothing to do with Jimmy, by the way. We didn't like something. So we just quit. And then all of a sudden, learning curve is amazing. Like, all of a sudden, now I can play bluegrass, and I'm still practicing country, actually. Now and then I take a gig with Marty Allen, because I feel my training is almost complete. Young Jedi. But I didn't grow up with country, so I need to make an effort at country. So basically, my idea for learning country is, not only is it great, beautiful, meaningful, like story music with gorgeous melodies, but I don't want to be embarrassed if I'm ever in Nashville. I want to go down there, if I'm asked to play a jam, and just know every Hank Williams song, every Johnny Cash song. I don't want to be embarrassed myself. So I already know I cannot embarrass myself with the blues, because I've gone to the South Side, Chicago, like Checkerboard Lounge. I gotten up with bands. I got a standing ovation. I didn't know that was possible, but it proved to me I learned blues properly. Even reggae. I went down to Jamaica like 10 times. and I got standing ovations from the Jamaicans. So I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure I know how to play reggae. Country, I haven't really proven it to myself, but if I ever go to Nashville, I'll know. They'll either clap or they'll go, you don't get it. So I'm still practicing country, and that was also just from just quitting something you don't like. You're not growing in that band anymore. The growth is over. Like, we had this beautiful flowering stage with this young kid, Jimmy Boskill, who was like, he still, when we found him outside of Healy's, he still had his little kid voice. Mm-hmm. He sounded like a girl, like a falsetto. And then we were with him through the voice change. We're with him through all these levels. Then it kind of got like a serious business thing, and that's when we quit. Right. We're just like, plus, you don't want to hold a kid back like that. Like, he is so beautiful heart. Like, he's like going to keep you in his band forever. And you know that's not what he needs.
Right.
He needs to be like us, like different bands, different musicians. You can't just keep me. You gotta, kid, I'm sorry, but I'm breaking up with you so that you get a new girlfriend.
He's certainly done well for himself.
He's done amazing. And like, that's another thing too, that like the business heads, sometimes they get into it and they go, we're going to make you the next Jimmy Page. I'm like, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Because I know the kid. He used to invite me to his house like I was 12, but I was 50. Mm-hmm. But I used to just take him up. He wanted me to be his best friend. I'm like, I'll be your best friend. So we'd have these like sleepovers, right? And then he'd be playing like penny whistle. Then he'd have this tuba thing. He'd be playing that. Then he'd have piano. He'd be playing that. Then he'd have drums. So I knew he could play every instrument known to man. No problem. One time we even played a song. He had a penny whistle. I guess it was in D. And we came in the wrong key. And he made it work anyway. In the wrong key, on the spot. Like, live. She changed the key of what you're supposed to be able to do on a penny whistle. Like, on the spot. And he's writing these lyrics, too, that sound like as good as Louis Armstrong when he's, like, 12. He's writing, I think I'll go down to the stream and get some water. Like, to the well to get some water as the July days are getting hotter. I'm like, the guy's a poet, too. So, in my mind, he's the boss. He doesn't need advice. Like, he needs zero advice. So when he started getting advice, I had to leave. I had to leave because I didn't want to cause a war. Like, I felt like telling everyone to F off who was around him. Like, just leave him alone. I just quit. And Alec did too. It was like, we're done. And then we just gently drifted into Broken Joe, which was a huge, huge musical learning curve and so satisfying. And then that band ended because we had a tour offer to play in Germany. And all of a sudden we realized Joe had zero ambition as a musician. Zero. He actually said to us, he goes, guys, you know what I'm proud of? We're like, what? He goes, I'm the best bartender ever. I am the best. He goes, music is just for fun. And we're like, you're turning down a tour of Germany. And he's like, yes. And we're like, me and Alec quit that band too. We're like, we want to go to Germany. I'm sorry, but we cannot live with this band if you're not going to succeed. And He was like, okay, fine. So band's over.
This thing that's going to come to tell you whether you want to continue with music, can that come in from within? Could it be a song you write and you think, I got to record this. I got to get in the studio with. I mean, yeah, if you're still writing.
I'm writing, yeah. Yeah, I'm writing.
Could it be that, or does it have to be an external thing?
Well, right now what I've got is my good buddy Damien Aroki, and this has been happening since we were teenagers. He'll just drop off some songs. Like it's just music with he'll do the drums himself, the bass, the guitar. It's always more complex than what I write. And he'll just leave it with me, and then eventually I write the lyrics, and then I come back to him, and then we go in the studio And oftentimes it's not even with him. I go into the studio with other musicians on a song that he wrote. And so again, like repeating itself like right from the time we were teenagers. He's given me about 8 songs. I'm like, I got to start doing my homework. Like I've got a bunch of them. Some of them I've got finished and some of them partly finished. But right now, I don't, like, it'll just happen. Like the studio will be there. The guys will be free. We'll record it one day. But the thing that's just naturally exciting me right now is the thing that logically you'd think wouldn't excite me. And it's the Doors tribute band. The furthest thing from what I've ever done. Copying someone else? Just like so foreign to me. But I can't explain why I'm excited about it. I just am. I just feel like wouldn't it be a great thing to present Jim Morrison as I see him? Because I think everyone else is doing it wrong. I think his whole image is misperception of who he was. That's my theory. I've been even reading books about people who knew him before he got famous. Apparently, he really cares about his promises. Like we think of him as going off and doing mushrooms in the middle of the desert, right? Yeah, that's when he doesn't have any promises he made. That's on his own time. But he's actually really responsible. He used to always show up prepared to every recording session. Like he was super concerned about his promises to other people. Like he cared about people a lot. A lot. Personally, I'm starting to learn he actually thought in the 60s that love was going to take over the world in 67. I think he was actually emotionally hurt when it didn't happen and Vietnam started happening and people started ODing and, it just got out of control. I think he was really like, what? I thought it was going to be like heaven on earth. I think he was really disappointed, like to the point of, I don't even need to be part of this world. If you're not going for love, I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I need to wrap this up, but I want to thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
We've always had interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And I remember working with Broken Joe and what fun that was.
You caught a song that was never recorded, Doc the Dentist, which is a brilliant testament to Joe's songwriting, lyrical ability and singing ability. Like Doc the Dentist, that's...
Yeah.
I can't write songs like that. Like that's a historical song, like about another person. Like that's like, I guess they call that narrative writing. Like this is a story about Jack and Diane, like about someone. I always write songs about myself, but I love writers that can just write about, Doc Holliday, Doc, who I didn't actually know was a dentist. So you think of him as a gun-toting criminal. He's a dentist. And then Joe, there's so much wit in the way he writes. So I'm so glad I got to back him up. Like that was a treasure. And it was so funny because in the Phantoms, I was the singer and he took most of the guitar solos. I hardly played any harp solos in that band.
Really?
My idea was, back to the beginning of our discussion, was Magic Dick in Jay Giles. He always played very short, powerful, concise solos. That's what I did in the Phantoms. My solos were short, to the point, in and out. Joe was the guy who played most of the solos. So it was so funny because we reversed it in Broken Joe. He became the singer. I took all the solos. So it was almost like before he died, we were like you backed me up, I backed you up. Deal's done. You're allowed to die now. Like we did our deal.
What's amazing when you talk about your friendship with the band, and I think I once read that you staying with the band and having them as friends meant more to you than anything else.
Yeah.
And the fact that you were there on Joe's...
But that makes it sound a little bit, not romantic, I forget the word, but it's more that I promised them something. So it's more just about me too. No, it makes it sound overly sentimental. There is a sentimental, But sentimentality can throw you off.
Right.
Basically, I made a promise to them, so I got to keep the promise, or else what? I can't be a singer. Singers are tellers of the truth. They tell you how things actually go in life. So if you start breaking your deals with people, you're going to be, to me, I don't know, I can't even sing if I'm not like singing what I think is the truth. And so if I don't keep my deal with the band, I'm just a hypocrite and shouldn't even be on stage.
Well, I mean, it's well said, and I totally understand, and I certainly believe you, but, you know, it's not certainly what other people have done in the past.
Okay,
Right.
good. I'm an original then. The original guy
Not
who
everybody,
steals
but
from
not
everybody.
everybody refuses a record deal because, you know, for themselves. But Jerome, thank you so much for doing this. It's always great.
Thank
talking to
you, Marco. I've always enjoyed your interview style, and you're something that I'm not, which is like I want to be more like you, a really engaged listener who just enjoys listening.
To interesting people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.